Y'all, this is the Hillbilly Think Tank, and I am Spencer Keck, the educated hillbilly. No, that's not an oxymoron. Don't call me a moron, because y'all there have been educated, erudite, and emancipated hillbillies in these parts ever since my family came to the Cumberland Gap with Daniel Boone. And welcome back, neighbors, kith, kin. You're listening to the voice of Hardin County and of Central Kentucky, since I have a guest on here today. And this is the podcast that talks it straight, tells it to you straight, listens close, and keeps its eye on what matters most to families, workers, veterans, and farmers right here in our community. So I'm your host, as I said, Spencer Keck. I'm running for magistrate in Hardin County District 3, and today we're going to dive deep into something that affects every single person living in Hardin County, Kentucky, the 2026 primary elections. Now, as I said, got a guest on here. We're going to talk about you. I'm going to talk about you deeply here in a second, but just go ahead and introduce yourself if you would there, William.
Hey everybody, I'm William Compton. I'm from down in Bowling Green, public school teacher. I'm a city commissioner in Plum Springs, and I'm running to represent the 2nd Congressional District here in Kentucky.
Now, y'all, again, this is the shape of the shape we are in for the primaries here in 2026. And William, you want to tell everybody what day they need to go vote for those primaries?
Yeah, so the primary election day is May 19th. And so 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., you can go to your voting location and vote. But we also have early voting, which will be the 14th, 15th, and 16th. If you want to go early and go cast your vote, which is what I tend to do. I leave right after school. I go to the polling place that's right near my school, cast my vote, and then come on home and get it done and over with. So those are the days that you can vote.
So my dad used to tell me, vote early, vote often.
Yep. Exactly.
So I'm definitely going to go also, like you're saying, I'm going to go vote early. That way I can give folks a ride to the polls if they need it, and get out and do some more work for folks like yourself and others. Now, I know some of you are thinking, hey, it's just a primary. My vote doesn't matter until November. Well, I'm here to tell you that is exactly what politicians are counting on you believing in.
Yep.
The primary, though, is where the choices get made about who gets elected and which policies get enacted. It's a historical fact and it's a statistical fact. So the primary is where your voice is the loudest. This is where, this year we've got a wide field of candidates in both parties, but, especially in the Democratic Party this year in our region, in our state. We do know, I think we were talking about that before the show, William, but Nate Morris has dropped out because Captain Bone Spurs has decided to go full-throated in his support of, someone else. I won't say that person's name because it disgusts me so much. And now with that, full-throated hoorah, he's giving Nate Morris an easy out, and he's going to make him ambassador to, I think it's Antarctica. No one knows what obscure little place he's going to be the ambassador to. Yeah, but he's got to throw a dog a bone, and so it has been a dogfight among that crew of candidates on that side. So, again, the primaries is where our voice is able to be heard the loudest. We're able to truly choose who is going to represent you. Of course, that's if you were registered as a Democrat or as a Republican. That's the only time you get to vote in the primaries. We talked about that before, and hey, this is where the rubber hits the road. So, in a district like ours, where every vote counts, May 19th is a day you cannot afford to miss. So, grab your coffee or your bourbon, pull up a chair, and let's talk about what's actually happening out here in Hardin County and across Kentucky's 2nd Congressional District. Now, I'm going to let our host, myself, and William here, let's go ahead and start with the basics. What is actually on the ballot this May 19th? And I'm going to tell you how I feel about it. I'll might get a little windy. Just hold on a bit if y'all would with me. And then I'm going to let Mr. William Compton take over. Of course, I like to call him Dakota because he actually goes by his middle name like I do. But okay, so here's what I'm going to say is actually, according to E. Spencer Keck, actually on the ballot May 19th. So in Kentucky's 2nd Congressional District, that's us, Hardin County, we're holding a Democratic primary for the U.S. House of Representatives seat. 4 Democrats are on that ballot. William Compton, we have with us here today. Dave Hatfield, Hank Linneman, and Megan Winfield. Now, on top of that, Kentuckians are choosing their Democrat nominee for the U.S. Senate seat being vacated by Mitch McConnell. Democrat candidates in that case are quite a few. One of them is one of our Hardin County own, Vincent Thompson. Now, I've had Vincent on here 3 times before, and I've decided, he's the hound that I'm rooting for, or let's say the rooster that I'm going to pull for. Now, I've also had Logan Forsyth on here before, and it was a tough choice, because these are really both highly qualified candidates. Hopefully, I can get both of them back on here to talk again. Like I said, I'm going for our Hardin County cattleman, man who knows what it's like to be devoid of full health coverage when your wife gets ill, as he talked about, I believe, when he was on here before. We also know we got another, has run before, and that's Charles Booker and Amy McGrath. They're both putting their hat in again. We've got the horse trainer breeder, Dale Romans, and then Colonel Pamela Stevenson. And I haven't been able to get Pamela Stevenson on here because they were in session. She's a firebrand. So the colonel is something else. She's also got so much experience and a real heart. Now, these are the choices that are going to shape who represents Hardin County families heading into the general election in November. Now, I don't have a primary challenger, so that's why I'm not mentioning myself. I am on the ticket, and everybody knows who my opponent is, who I'm running against, the incumbent. Now, let's talk about someone who has been making the rounds across this state, or I should say across our district, and here in Kentucky's 2nd District, and that is you. That is you, William Dakota Compton. William Compton is 31 years old. He's a public school teacher like myself. He teaches string orchestra. He's a 3-term city commissioner from the small community of Plum Springs, Kentucky. He's affiliated with the Poor People's Campaign and the Kentucky Democratic Rural Council. And he's running for the 3rd term. Or should say 3rd time. Is that 3rd time, William? Is that
3rd
true?
time.
Yep. Because he believes the people of Western Kentucky deserve a representative who actually shows up. And that's a big deal, y'all. I've seen him out and about anywhere I go. And of course, he's out there even more than that because I don't get everywhere. He put it plainly when asked why he's running, in my opinion, when he said, The people of Western Kentucky deserve a representative who understands our communities, shows up consistently, and fights to make life more affordable for working families. Now, I'd add to that our part of Central Kentucky, right? Since this district goes all the way up into a bit of Louisville, if that's,
Yeah.
yep, or Jefferson County, that is. Now, families, y'all, we know, as I've been talking about, families are stretched thin right now. Farmers are dealing with uncertainty. Young people are leaving this region, this state, because they don't see opportunity at home. Now, that is Hardin County in a nutshell, and that is our district. So let's take a little break for a moment, and then we'll come back and talk about the absolute importance of healthcare and the healthcare debacle that we see ourselves in.
You like that, little buddy? Was it good? Yeah, yeah.
Just got to always give a little shout out to my pups and the wonderful places we have to walk them in the parks around here. All right, so y'all, healthcare. You know, in Hardin County, this is not an abstract policy debate. This is a life and death matter. Consider these numbers in the Hardin County area. Roughly 35% of the residents rely on Medicaid, and another 22% depend on Medicare. That's more than half of this community leaning on those federal programs to see a doctor, get their medications, and take care of their families. And William Compton has been unequivocal about where he stands on this. And I got to throw in, so has Vincent Thompson. Now, healthcare, according to him and according to me, it's a human right. William supports Medicare for all. He supports protecting rural hospitals from closure. He wants to lower prescription drug costs by holding pharmaceutical companies accountable. He has pledged to fight to bring more primary care providers, PCPs, mental health specialists, and nurses to rural communities like ours. And I, got to throw out there when you talk about primary care providers, I said it that way because it's not just doctors. It's also, your physician assistants and my personal favorite, nurse practitioners. That's I've got some of the best care from them because in too many counties across Kentucky's second district, hospital closures and a lack of specialist forces, they lead people to having to make some really impossible choices. Think about that phrase, impossible choices. That means choosing between your insulin and your electric bill. It means driving an hour each way for a specialist appointment. And right now, with gas at the price that it is, man, that just don't beat all. That means skipping a checkup because you can't afford the copay. William Compton is, quoted as saying, and we know he believes, not on my watch.
Yep.
So now, William, I'm going to talk about another one of my favorite subjects here too. Let me just leave everybody with a little bit of happiness before we go on to it, because this is, real serious situation.
What do you see? What do you see? Oh my gosh, is it scary? You scared? What do you see? What are you seeing? Oh my gosh, is it scary? You scared? You scared?
Now, we don't want to, let people get as scared of some of these issues as my dogs are when they see the giants out there, the Bernheim Forest. So let's talk about veterans, because Hardin County is a veteran county. Fort Knox sits right here in our backyard. Hardin County has a veteran population that's more than double the national rate. Think about that. It's over 11,000 veterans call this county home. More than double. That means Hardin County has one of the most significant veteran communities of any county in America. Let that sink in. Now, William Compton gets that. On his campaign website, he says it directly. Kentucky has one of the highest rates of military service in the nation. And yet, too many veterans in Kentucky, especially in this Kentucky 2nd District, struggle to access the care and support they earned. Long drives to VA facilities, months-long wait times, and limited rural mental health providers leave veterans without the resources they need. Then he says something I want you to hear clearly. William believes we owe veterans more than thanks. We owe them action. Not a Yellow River bumper sticker, not a handshake on Veterans Day. Action, funding, proximity to care, mental health resources in rural communities where right now they barely exist. Compton has made veterans a cornerstone of his campaign precisely because he knows Hardin County. I see him here all the time. He knows Fort Knox. He knows our military families, and he refuses to let them be just an afterthought. So I don't want to be an afterthought. And I know that I feel sometimes, as a veteran, that I feel just like, we're an afterthought. And we don't want to be just an afterthought. So let's talk about who has been representing Hardin County before I let William come on and talk himself. Who's been representing Hardin County in Congress, and what has he done to the very programs that hundreds of thousands of Kentuckians depend on? And that man is Brett Guthrie, Republican incumbent. And as of 2026, the chairman of the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, the very committee responsible for Medicaid policy in this country. Now, this guardian of the pedophiles has not been seen. He hasn't come to any of the community discussion groups that he's been invited to by Mr. William Compton. I haven't seen him come and talk to the public openly. And, I've been through multiple elections here, since they come every 2 years, and he hasn't come out here to talk to the public. That's a big deal. So here's what you need to know. Representative Guthrie voted for and championed the one big, ugly, horrible bill, which was signed into law on July 4th, 2025. And what did that bill do? The Congressional Budget Office and independent health policy analysts have estimated it included nearly $1 trillion with a TR dollars in cuts to Medicaid, the largest rollback of federal health care support in American history. Now, that's not a talking point. It's much more than that, because we just said over 50% of Hardin Countyans rely on this medical care and this coverage. So it's a fact documented by the American Medical Association, the Center for Medicare Advocacy, the Urban Institute, and the RAND Corporation. Now, at least two of those groups are not left-wing shills. They're actually conservative groups, but your more traditional, conservatives that are open to facts. Now, the bill imposes new work requirements on Medicaid recipients. Adults 19 to 64 must now prove they work 80 hours a month or lose their coverage. It requires more frequent eligibility checks every 6 months instead of once a year, which historically results in eligible people losing their coverage due to paperwork errors, missed mail, and overwhelmed state agencies. It also restricts the ability of states to use provider taxes to fund their share of Medicaid, which means states like Kentucky will have less money to keep rural hospitals open. Now, animal analysts, they estimate that by 2034, 10 million more Americans will be uninsured as a direct result of this bill. And right here at home, the Kentucky Democratic Rural Council and Compton's own campaign have pointed out that this bill threatens over 35 rural hospitals across Kentucky. Rural hospitals already operate on razor-thin margins, y'all. The average operating margin for rural hospitals nationwide was just 3.1% before this bill, with nearly half of them already in the red. Now, does Brett Guthrie care? No, he wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal calling the bill common sense. He said it strengthens Medicaid for our most vulnerable Americans. BS. But the data tells us a different story, y'all. The organizations that represent doctors, patients, elderly Americans, and people with disabilities, they say these cuts will worsen across our access to care. They say eligibility will be, it's going to be tough and people are going to be kicked off. Hospitals are going to close. Now in Hardin County, that's not an abstraction. That is your neighbors losing their health care. That is a veteran who can't get mental health treatment. That's a grandma, a mama, like I used to love so much before she passed away. That's a mama not getting her medications. Now, what about Medicare? Because seniors in Hardin County, they're affected too. This is really where it hits our mamas hard. The Center for Medicare Advocacy laid it out clearly. While the big, beautiful bill primarily targets Medicaid, it also limits Medicare's ability to negotiate drug prices by carving out so-called orphan drugs, some of the most expensive medications, from the negotiation process. It blocks streamlined enrollment rules that helped low-income seniors access the Medicare Savings Program. And 10 million people losing their insurance coverage means more uninsured people flooding emergency rooms, which puts pressure on the entire healthcare system that Medicare beneficiaries depend on. Our seniors deserve a fighter, not a chairman who helped architect the largest healthcare cuts in American history. Say that again, largest healthcare cuts in American history. This is an absolute travesty. Now, Mr. Compton, I think you must be itching to tell us exactly how you feel. And if you would, please do that.
I mean, you have stated all the facts. And you've said so in a way that honestly, I couldn't do any better. But yeah, healthcare is one of the big pillars of my race, because everyone's going to need healthcare at some point. It doesn't matter how old you are now. It doesn't matter where you live. You're going to need healthcare at some point. And like you said earlier, Medicaid. A lot of people do not realize this, that Medicaid actually pays into our hospitals based on our minimum wage. And so Kentucky's getting the lowest amount of Medicaid reimbursement rates across this state already, which is why we see a lot of hospitals already in those slim margins, already in the red. You mentioned the 35 rural hospitals that are in danger of closing. 4 of those are actually in this congressional district alone, which is sad to see, because these are communities that rely on these hospitals for healthcare, that when they're gone and they're going to say, well, we put a few $1 billion in the budget for the next 5 years to make sure that these hospitals don't close. That's putting a Band-Aid on a boo-boo and it not healing. In 5 years, that money's going to be gone. Those hospitals are still going to be in the same shape they're in now. And so we're going to lose those hospitals. We're going to lose those lifelines for these rural communities. And people are going to have to drive hours to get to the nearest hospital. That can mean life or death. That can mean someone uh, having a stroke and not being able to get to the hospital in time to clear that out to survive. That could mean someone going into labor and having to go into labor on the side of the road because they can't get to a hospital in time to deliver that baby. We're even seeing specialist clinics across this district. I know a dialysis clinic in Muhlenberg County closed because they didn't have the funding. And everyone is asking, where are we going to go now? We have to drive up to Owensboro now. That's added on an extra 45-minute drive. And as you mentioned, gas prices are astronomical now. I know here in Bowling Green, we're seeing anywhere from $4.14 to $4.17, 18. And so it's insane. We need someone to step up and fix this. And the fact that our representative, like you said earlier, is the person in charge of healthcare in Congress. He is happy about these cuts. He is applauding these cuts, and he's hurting the people he's supposed to be serving. We don't need that representing us. And that's what every single day I'll be working to fix this. I'll be working to make sure everyone can access healthcare affordably through a Medicare for All system. And I'll show up every chance I get. And like I said, you said a lot of the facts and figures more before I could speak.
Well, the thing is, as you mentioned there, you said you'll show up. And if you see there in the comments, got from Tom Armstrong, and Tom, thanks for coming in. He said, he met you back in October here in E-Town when you were here at a very important event, which I have represented here on my sweatshirt today. And that means something to me. And hopefully it means something to everybody that's listening to the show. Everywhere, any event that I've gone to that means something to this district, you've been there. From all the way from things I've been to in Louisville to Green River to all the time here in Hardin County. I think we also met over, was it LaRue and Nelson at an event?
Yes.
Yeah, it's, and that's key. Putting in the footwork to actually meet and talk to all the constituents, regardless of their party affiliation, is what you've been doing and showing up for. And that's something that I can't say enough about. Before we let you say a little bit more, we also got someone here named Sarifu, it looks like, saying we have a Second Amendment obligation to remove Trump from our national Sic Semper Tyrannis. It is our job, as put forward by the Constitution of the United States, to remove the tyrant Donald Trump from the United States. Let's see. The Second Amendment, we have a Second Amendment obligation to remove Trump from our national law. All right. So, yeah, I think that person sounds like a voter for you.
And I will say, with those comments, I'm in a group called the Courage Candidates, which is a nationwide group of candidates running for both the House and the Senate. And one of the big pillars we're focusing on is removing Donald Trump and make sure we're impeaching him when we get elected, making sure we're holding himself and his administration accountable for everything they've been doing these last couple years. And we've gotten a lot more traction. A lot more people are starting to jump on board with this now, considering everything that's been going on here recently. I do want to make note of, I feel like we have enough people in the House to impeach Trump, but we have to make sure that we support our Senate candidates, because even if we flipped every single seat, we're still going to have some Republicans come over on our side that would put some teeth to this. So we have to make sure that we support some of those candidates as well.
Absolutely. So, what do you have to say about the Senate race? What do you think? I know, you're not running for Senate, but what do you think there? What's your take on it?
I feel like there is about three or four good candidates running for Senate. It's a hard choice. There's, I'm trying to say this in the nicest way possible. We have a chance as long as we rally behind whomever the nominee is. We don't focus on purity tests. We
Yeah.
focus on getting someone in there who is going to stand up to this administration and someone who's going to fight for Kentucky. So whomever wins the primary, they will have my full support.
And could you tell me a little bit more, since I am a combat veteran, I'm a disabled combat veteran, in addition to being, a teacher like yourself, which I love so much, but tell me what you think the significance is of our veteran population here. And the only thing I didn't really hit on there, but is important, what will you do to help save the VA healthcare system, since we are losing 86,000 VA employees since Doge, went into action? What is your take?
So first off, our veteran population is very important to me. I've had many family members who have served in the military in many different branches. I fully respect and honor everyone who does put their life on the line for our country. So anything I can do to make your life better when you come back, I'm going to be working on it. I believe that we need to make sure that our veterans with the VA system, one, we need to reinstate these jobs that have been lost. In fact, we've seen that before these jobs were cut, we were already understaffed in these VA clinics already. So we need to up the staffing even more to make sure they're not understaffed, to make sure they can take care of our veterans properly. I think we need to have more VA clinics in more of our rural areas, or more ways to get those services to our rural areas, whether that's telehealth, whether that is the VA clinic providing rides for our veterans who can't drive there themselves. Anything to make healthcare easier for our veterans. We also need to make sure that, for example, the PACT Act that passed for the burn victims when you're in combat, we need to make sure that those backlogs that we're seeing for people accessing that, we need to take care of that quicker. I mentioned this before on your podcast. It's sad that our VA healthcare claims, when we can pass a bill that gives budget cuts quicker to our billionaires than we can to get these VA healthcare claims processed, we have an issue. So we need to work on fixing that, making sure that we get those processed quicker, get them through to where they have the healthcare they need. And then we also need to make sure that we have in every part of the state, every part of the country, resources for mental health. Suicide is a really big issue when veterans come back into civilian life. And we need to make sure they have the mental health to help take care of that and help make sure that they don't want to take their own life.
Absolutely. That's, extremely important, due to, I'm not the only person in my family that uses or has used the VA healthcare. And it's just extremely important to me that it remains stable, strong, and available to all of us, no matter where we live, whether we're in a metropolitan area or one of our remote rural areas. Now, I know that we've got some folks that also are concerned that the clinic that's supposed to be built here in Elizabethtown on Ring Road won't be built due to the money being cut back from the VA. What do you think about that, or have to say about that?
That is a legitimate concern. And here's what I will say. I have a feeling that, in order to make himself seem better when it comes to veteran healthcare, I have a feeling that Brett Guthrie is going to make sure it gets finished, the building, but then he's not going to do anything to make sure it's staffed and to make sure it is run properly. That's going to be the issue. So I feel like Guthrie's going to make sure it's built, go there and take pictures with the opening ceremonies, but then it's just going to sit there and not serve the purpose that it needs to.
Yeah, I totally agree. We got Tom here saying, put it down in the comments. I watched how the VA healthcare system treated my father-in-law, and I have deep respect for every person working in that system.
Yeah.
This society doesn't treat those workers well enough.
Yeah.
And he also goes on to say, I do not begrudge a penny spent on treating veterans well.
Yeah.
I
And
also put up a little meme there for our current, I guess you could say, detractor. We got a little bot on there.
yeah,
But that's how Lindsey Graham was when he was out to the beach. That's what he wrote on the sand. 69-47. He thought,
and I will say to Tom's point, when I speak to people across the district, that's what they want their taxpayer funds to go to, helping our veterans, helping make sure we have infrastructure like roadways that you won't hit a pothole and get a flat tire, making sure that we have schools that are fully funded, making sure we have hospitals that are fully staffed to where you can go and get healthcare. That's what they want their taxpayer funds to go towards. They don't want it to go towards a war in Iran just to hide the fact that our president's in the Epstein files. They want it to go to things helping the people here in this country. And that
you know
is
what I actually realized recently?
what?
Epstein's in the Trump files.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's what people want our funds to do. And Tom, yes, codify Roe versus Wade into federal law. I've been a big proponent of that since the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. We need to codify that. We need to make sure that women have the ability to make decisions for their own body.
Well, now that we've got to hear a little bit what you have to say, let's just zoom out a little bit and go, statewide, larger than the district wide. It still, of course, is extremely important to us. But let's look at that, the Senate race that we're talking about. Like I said, I told you which hound I'm backing in that race. But the U.S. Senate race matters enormously for Hardin County, too. For the first time since 1992, Kentucky Democrats have a real opportunity to compete for a U.S. Senate seat. And that seat being vacated by the best guardian of the pedophile of them all, Mitch McConnell, it's up for grabs after more than 4 decades in Washington. So, I talked about all the Democrats, 6, 7 of them that are vying for that nomination. Vincent Thompson, Logan Forsythe, Charles Booker, Amy McGrath, Dale Roman, and Colonel Pamela Stevenson. Now, each of them is bringing something to the table, that's significant. Booker's a former state rep. He was born and raised in Louisville's West End, and he was a 2022 Democratic Senate nominee. When Rand tried to, he was the one that ran against Rand Paul and lost. He is consistently focused on economic justice, healthcare access, and the working people of Kentucky. We also know that we've got, like I said, the horse trainer in there. He seems, to be trying to really work on his working class, credentials. Amy McGrath is a retired Marine Corps fighter pilot and a 2-time Senate candidate. She brings back a military background that resonates deeply in a county like ours. She's also called for reforming immigration enforcement, reining in the executive overreach, and restoring accountability to federal agencies. Now, I guess Dale Roman's big thing is he's really looking for diplomacy over military escalation because he wants, put those working folks, us working folks, and our economic policy in the forefront. Pamela Stevenson, now she's the current minority leader, so she's in office, and she's the current minority leader of the Kentucky House of Representatives, a woman who has spent years fighting in Frankfort for communities that are, too, how do you say, left behind, basically, for people to really pay attention to them. She's also a Louisville native. Really importantly, she is a military retiree and veteran, and she was a colonel in the Air Force Judge Advocate Corps. So she really knows the in and outs of the legal system, of how to make laws, enact laws, and was a big part of diplomatic relations internationally. So she has experience in that arena. So now we know that Vincent Thompson, like I said, he is one of our own here in Hardin County. He's a cattleman. He knows the plight of our Kentucky rural farmers and what it means to have a legacy of a family, farming, riding on each season. He knows what is going on right now when farmers cannot fill up their tractors with the diesel. I talked about last night, you need about 18,000 gallons of diesel to come in to your property, and it costs $1,000 more than it should have if it wasn't for this war to fill up every time they come in to do that. He also knows the effects of the American medical system screwing over, his life when his wife didn't get the care and access she needed, and passed away because of that. He can tell his story, of course, a lot better, but he is really pushing this access to healthcare for all of us, regardless of who we are. And that's a big deal to me. He's got other great policies, but right now he is our Hardin County head of our conservation district, and that means a lot. Conservation, taking care of our land. And, when I say take care of, I mean, really making sure the soil, the water, and everything else is healthy. That makes us healthy. So that's why, that's where I'm putting my 2 cents. That's where I'm putting my vote. Although I'll tell you, Logan Forsyth, he's a man of experience, integrity also, and his experience as a Secret Service, man who defended, I think it was, 3 presidents, Obama.
Yep.
45 when he was first, his first term, and Biden. So he did that honorably. You got to put your life on the line for that, regardless of what you believe politically. And he just said, hey, enough's enough. And he threw his hat into the ring. He's got real working roots also, coming from Western Kentucky. So we got some real serious, good candidates. They're putting a lot of thought into what they want to see for Kentucky. And I just really got to emphasize to folks, this is the time. The primaries are the time to be able to put your money where your mouth is. Elect a candidate to be on our ballot in November that represents what we really believe in. So I want to see our amazing Kentucky. Like I say, I came back after years away, serving the military, putting my life on the line for this nation. I decided I really wanted to serve in an even deeper manner. So I came back to Kentucky to do the Troop to Teachers program and become a teacher here, just like you are, William, a teacher and a public school teacher. You and I could make more money in some of these private schools. Actually, when it comes to lower grades like we teach, maybe not, but we could go on cachet into making more money somewhere, but our heart is with these kids. And I don't know if we really hit on how horribly this administration has done the citizens, the regular citizens, the working class of Kentucky when it comes to education. You know, public education. We had a chance to decide, are we going to allow public funds to be funneled to private schools? And we had that on our ballot initiative, and we decided, heck no, no way, and hey, well, we're going to do that. The last election cycle, right? And yet they're still trying to do that. And when this administration destroyed our education, and that it's just, man, that Department of Education is so fundamental to making sure that every American and every state has an equal access to education and fair play. I want to let you say something about that. I see some other people making comments here. We'll go ahead and talk about that a bit, and we'll try to head out, sign off once we look at other comments. What do you think about?
Again, you hit the nail on the head. This administration has gutted our Department of Education. And I know that it really hurt my heart when I saw them getting rid of the part of the department that dealt with special education, ensuring that they had the things they need to succeed. I have had students in my class, I teach orchestra, who are in special education. And those kids, they deserve just as much of an opportunity as every single other person in our public schools. The fact that they are taking that away from them just breaks my heart so much. So much so that we're seeing special education teachers being cut in my district and probably in your district as well. We're seeing funding cut for that. We're seeing funding cut for mental health resource centers and specialists. I know after COVID, we had them in all of my schools down here in Warren County. And now we're lucky if we have one once every couple weeks. And we're just seeing all of these cuts to these schools that have helped our children, that we're helping them, especially out of COVID, that are so vital and gone. We're not even seeing them putting those resources back into programs like our tech programs. My high school has a really big FFA program, really big tech school nearby that kids go to. And we're not even seeing those funds being put back into those programs that would help working people get out into the world and be able to find apprenticeship programs or find jobs in these careers that we need. We need people who knows how to work on an HVAC. We need people who knows how to fix pipes and plumbing. We need people who knows how to go out and grow crops effectively without destroying the land. And so we're not seeing those resources put back in. And we're actually seeing cuts to those programs as well. And then programs like mine, I teach music. Music is vital. It doesn't matter where you are in this world. Music is the universal language. And to some of these kids, my class, the music classes, are some of the only reasons they want to go to school and want to learn. It's one of the only ways that they know how to regulate their emotions effectively. And yet we're seeing those programs being cut too. We're seeing Hart County in our congressional district, they got rid of their ROTC program here recently. Their ROTC program.
And again, that's, talk about a state that has some of the highest volunteer rates for the military. And yet, if you join ROTC, that gives you a couple ranks up if you complete the whole program once you do join the military. Even if you go and start off enlisted, which a lot of those graduates do from there, instead of being an E1 when you first join, you'll be an E3. And that's a significant pay jump just for doing the work of ROTC through high school, Also, if you decide you want to go on to college, well, that gives you a leg up and getting an ROTC scholarship in college, which means a lot more money and a lot more education while you're in the military, and it helps you, once you get out. So that is huge. But the big thing for me, as someone who is a survivor of child abuse from a stepfather that was from Texas, not from Kentucky, I am very concerned about kids not having the access now to this social worker and teacher interface that we also have. This mental health. You talk about mental health being a big, important part of your campaign, and access to it. Well, public schools is one of the biggest places where you can see kids needing it and actually get them into it. I taught in Hardin County. There's a student that she basically, in her writings in my English language arts class, she was putting out a plea for help for some extremely serious stuff going on at home. I won't get into the details. I don't want to accidentally give away, who this was. But by me being able to push and push and push, I actually was able to make sure that young person, and she came back, she was gone for, the rest of the school year once they finally got her into the system. And she came back and thanked me. She said her and her siblings were taken out, got what they needed in foster care for about a year. And the parent, that wasn't doing them right, got the training needed. And, they came back home and she felt that, she was safe. But it was bad. I mean, I just, like I say, I won't lay out specifics because I don't want to give away who or what, this was. But man, I mean, that, I'm sure you've seen that in your career.
Oh yeah.
I also see kids every day that are starving. They wouldn't have 2 meals a day out of
And
a day. They don't get 3. They only get 2. It's at school.
yep, and you just brought that up. Someone in Hardin County just sent me from their superintendent, dated today. There are 4 elementary schools, 4 elementary schools, 1 middle school, 3 high schools, and an early college and career center in Hardin County. So a total of 8 schools in Hardin County that will no longer offer no cost lunch to all of their students. And they're going to make students start paying again.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but
And that's, I mean, dude, kids don't even have enough money to bring pencils every day.
Exactly. And
how the heck they going to, bring, their lunch and pay for the lunch? I mean, and I was that starving kid before my mom got sucked into, right-wing fundamentalism, and we started being homeschooled. Of course, that's when the abuse got even heavier for me and for my siblings. But, that period from K through 6, when I was in public school, there was a period where, man, I if it wasn't for people being nice to me and giving me part of their lunch, I'd have been hungry through the whole day. And you can't think when you're in class and you're starving. So,
exactly.
we provide a service that if it was in any other nation, we would be paid commensurate to our education. Most all of us have master's levels. I think that should go back the way it was when I think our governor Paul Patton made it a requirement. If you wanted to stay as a professional teacher, you need a master's. I believe that absolutely should be what we're required to have. But now you can have, a bachelor's, or seems like they're even thinking about making an associate's. But this is a profession, and it's this profession that makes it possible for other kids to not just be the HVAC guys, and the farmers, but have a choice. Do you want to be a doctor? Do you want to be a lawyer? Do you want to be an engineer? But, even what you're teaching, music, that involves the side of the brain that's the same side of the brain that math works on. So if you know how to read music and, play it from reading it with the notes, you're using that same side of the brain that's stimulated with math. And so those two tie together. Talk about, cutting funding for the arts and for music.
I did a whole study in college, and actually when you play music, it lights up both sides of your brain. And if you play music and then go to another class, whatever you learn in that next class your brain is still firing off on both sides. So
On
the
both
neural
sides.
pathways
All right.
get created a lot quicker.
That makes
Learn
it
the
makes
material a
absolute sense. Yeah, and I'm someone who, when at a young, from third grade on, I'll be honest, I got stuck on the reading and writing side of my brain, and since it didn't come to me right away, that math side, it took me many years. I had to get basically into adulthood, especially since I started being homeschooled after not, seventh grade on. I missed out on real instruction in
Right.
math. Hey, we got, like I say, a few more other comments on here. We got cousin of mine who is a professor at Boston College. It's Dr. Gillihan. And Dr. Gillihan, yonder, Gillihan says, "Don't be crazy. How can we pay to invade Cuba if we pay for mental health?" Tom, previously up above there, I saw he is campaigning for and stumping for Booker. He thinks that Booker would be a great senator. Um, so, yeah, we got a few other people commenting here. I really think we need to spend our money where it's going to help the working class.
Exactly.
The guardians of the pedophiles and these guardians of the Epstein files, they got all the money they need. We know that the president gave $50 million to his 19-year-old son to invest in the petroleum market right before he started this war in Iran. So they're going to take care of themselves. Whether they graduate college or not, they're going to be millionaires and billionaires. But that's not going to happen to our kids. We've got to invest in them for them to be able to be the productive folks that they deserve to be and want to be, especially in this great state of Kentucky.
One of
Here in Hardin County.
you mentioned earlier how I'm a part of the Poor People's Campaign and
Oh, and I
joined.
meant to ask you, would you tell us more about that? Because I am a huge fan of Reverend, is it William Barber, I believe?
Yes, yeah. The whole idea about it is just to be a voice to fight for the poor people in this country, the people who can't fight, the people who've been neglected for far too long. We know the rich people like Elon Musk are throwing money around like crazy. It is kind of funny that he threw 10 million to Nate Morris and then Nate Morris dropped out. But uh,
It's
the
hilarious.
the people like you and I, the people who are living paycheck to paycheck, they don't have voices fighting for them often. So that's what the whole idea with the Poor People's Campaign is, lifting up people like you and I, the working people in this country, lifting them up to raise our entire country up. And that's the big thing I got from that was if you are moving and you are going to pick up a box, you're not going to pick up the top of the box to move it. You're going to lift from the bottom to lift everything up in the box. So why don't we do that in our country? Lift from the bottom, everybody up.
Absolutely.
And that stuck with me when I first heard that from them. And that's what I believe in.
And I'm not sure if you're aware, and this it still ties into what we're talking about. The war basically has exploded, and oil prices are skyrocketing. That ceasefire has ceased to exist anymore.
Yep.
So,
It
what does
didn't
this
even
mean?
last the 2 weeks that Trump promised.
Yeah, exactly. Well, our students could soon find themselves, drafted.
Yeah.
And kids that are drafted, man, they need to have a really good education to be capable warriors.
Well,
Play a little, yeah, no,
speaking of those drafted, have you seen the pictures of what our military men and women, what they are being fed now?
I did, and I posted that recently.
And
Absolute dog scraps. Yep.
and I know they're fighting for our country, but we can do better than that. We can do so much better than that for them. They're fighting for our country.
Yep. Yep.
What is wrong with it? Like, why can't we feed them?
Yeah. Absolutely. That's just something, I talked about that the other night. Um, I when I was deployed, all the many times I was deployed in my over 20 years, in the military, I never had to eat scraps, but maybe one time did we go for a few days because the supply officer um, didn't forecast ahead far enough, correctly enough, to when we're going to, hit port and be able to get some more food. And so we did scrape the barrel for just a couple days. They've been doing this now for a long, long time. And they also have messed up the military mail system over there so bad, can't get flights in, that families have been wanting to send their family members care packages to have real good food to eat. Those aren't getting through. They're getting lost or getting hung up, not even making it in. So, I mean, you want to talk, don't tell me, Guardians of the Pedophiles, that you love the military. And don't thank me for my service when this is the way you're rewarding us.
Exactly.
So, all right, y'all. If we haven't said enough to convince you that this is one of the most important primary elections, not just midterm elections, in our nation's history, I don't know what else we need to do. This 19th of this month, so important. Get out, vote, make your voice heard. We got a great candidate on here tonight. I'll let you give your last thought before I sign us out here.
So if you live in Kentucky's 2nd Congressional District, I would really appreciate your vote May 19th if you're registered as a Democratic voter. If you're not registered as a Democratic voter and registered Republican, still go out and go vote. If you are registered as an independent, I'm sorry you can't vote in our elections, but please keep note of this campaign. Please reach out. I still would love to earn your vote, and same with Republicans. Still love to earn your vote in November, where I will be on the ballot that you could vote on. If you would like to help our campaign, go to my website at williamcompton.com. At the bottom of the landing page is a contact form you can fill out. We are actually phone banking. We're starting up a huge phone banking this Thursday with the Progressive Victory Network. They've been phone banking for Franklin Jackson in Indiana. They phone bank for Annalena Meja. They phone bank for James Tallarico. And now they're helping our campaign out. So you can join them with phone banking. If you don't want to phone bank, you want to text, fill that form out. Let us know. We'll get you that. And if you can, and you want to put your money where your mouth is, there's a donate button on that website, and you can click and you can donate to our campaign to make sure money's going to help elect someone who's going to fight for the people here in this district.
And I'm gonna close on the idea. Number one, please vote for me in November. I'm not being primaried, so I'm already on the ballot in November for magistrate here in District 3, Hardin County. But it is crucial that we get out, vote this month and in November. This, it's the shape that we're in, and we're checking on it, and we are checking it twice. We really need to be serious about it. Get on it, because there's nothing more important in the history of our county, our state, our district, and our nation right now. If you really believe that it's no more about the left versus the right, no more is it about Republican versus Democrat. It's about the fact that we have to have real justice in this country. It can't be just us, those billionaires, against the rest of us. And if you want to change it, you got to do that from the bottom up.
Yep.
And the primaries is where you start. So y'all, please remember, the only way we keep from being divided and that we live up to Kentucky's motto, united we stand, divided we fall, is if we recognize things like the People's Campaign that he's talking about are those campaigns that recognize we are our brother's keeper and we are our sister's keeper. That's how we keep from being divided. Bless your corazón, which is Spanish for heart. Remember, all those folks deployed overseas right now, let's bring them home through our votes. Y'all have a great rest of the day, and hopefully the week is treating you like gold.
Oh!